Hey guys, what's up? It's here. I'm just gonna put in a map and I'm gonna go. And then we're gonna talk.
I'm not up to that just yet.
Kind of get the idea. I'll kill the map boss. And I'll pour it out. So, that was a tier 7 map. My character is level 83. I made this character a few hours ago. So, what is this? If you watched my last build diary with the EK Nova Inquisitor, you will have gotten a sneak peek at what this is. Now, this is Physics Tornado Shot Omega Loft. So you guys have heard me talk ad nauseum about how much I want to make Tornado Shot work this league. Well, ever since I killed Searing Exarch and I got the Omniscience Amulet, I could not stop thinking about some way to make it work with Tornado Shot because it seemed so ridiculous. So I was up all night theory crafting a build for Tornado Shot. That led to me like not really sleeping and then starting stream super late, but that's fine because I got this and it seems to be incredibly strong. Now, I have been told from multiple people, I understand that this is starting to like pick up steam in softcore trade and stuff like that. I don't think anyone's really using this amulet in HCSSF or in hardcore trade, but I have intentionally not looked. I have, outside of like this league start, I've never really theory crafted any bow builds ever that I can even think of. The last time I even played a bow build was an Ellie hit got reworked back when everyone was playing at Scion with full fire conversion, right when they reworked it, you know, forever ago. And that was like the last time I played a bow on hit build. Bows have just never really been good in HCSSF or hardcore in general. They've always been super risky, and I just with the you know Bow League 2.0, I was really hoping there's a way I could make Tornado Shot work. And you guys have know I listed it as one of the build diaries I was gonna do, and then I talk about it constantly on stream. I've mentioned it in a bunch of videos that it's something I really want to make work. And I said I didn't think it would be super good, but I was gonna at least give it a shot this league. Well, turns out my Lord and Savior, Crystallised Omniscience, exists this league, and I think it is strong enough that I can make this build capable of all content on a Deadeye in HCSSF with Tornado Shot. So basically, why do I think that? Before I really get into things, this amulet alone gives me so much damage. I think I can focus basically purely on defenses and just still have enough damage to do all content. I think the amulet is absolutely insane. And like I said before, I intentionally didn't look up anything else. It was like, I wanted to avoid spoilers. I didn't want to see how other people were building it. This was kind of like a build making exercise for me, having very little experience with bows, bow nodes, this side of the tree in general in terms of my own theory crafting, very inexperienced. So I wanted to do my own thing and just see how good I could make this purely off, you know, my own merit, right? So yeah, with that preamble out of the way, what is this? This is Tornado Shot, Deadeye, Omniscience. So this whole build revolves around this amulet, which you get from the Searing Exarch. And basically what it does, this is going to be a really hard build to like really go through. I want to preface this with, this is all super experimental. My tree has been changing an insane amount, like hour to hour, and like as gear needs change. Basically, it's like really weird stat stacking, to put it plainly. And like as pieces swap in and out, like you need to change stats here and there, and things are really wonky. So there's a lot of like micromanaging and balancing of stats. But effectively how it works is you don't have stats anymore. You can see I have no stats. That also means I don't get life from strength. That also means I don't get mana from int. And it also means I don't get accuracy from dex. And that is a big one. Anyway, so if you click the Mist tab, you'll see that I have 908 Omniscience currently, which means I have basically 908 attribute points from whatever that are being converted to Omniscience. And so you'll see this last line, attribute requirements can be satisfied by 24% of Omniscience. So this can roll between 15 and 25%. You want to get that as high as possible. I got really lucky in one Divine Orb and got it all the way up to 24 because getting attribute point requirements on this is insanely hard. Okay, my bow requires 212 dex. You can see that my attribute requirement here is 217, so I basically just barely skirt by. Basically, the way this build works is you'll notice that I get +1 to all elemental resistances per 10 Omniscience, and I penetrate 1% elemental resistance per 10 Omniscience. So I have 908 Omniscience, which means I have basically 90 all res. And the way that kind of boils down here, if you go to my defenses, is it kind of almost completely negates the need to really build around resistances outside of chaos res. And instead, you focus a lot more on getting attributes anywhere and everywhere you can. So you'll notice that, like, something real quick before I super go into the tree is, like, I grabbed this full dex wheel with utmost swiftness, took the mastery, that gives me +5 dex for every mastery that I have. In addition, I have anointed utmost might, which gives me 40 strength and 8% increased strength. It's also why I'm running a lethal pride in the build. It gives me a bunch of strength everywhere. So it's very much like a, kind of like a pseudo stat stacker in a way, except instead of stacking one stat, you're stacking all the stats. And the higher you get this number, the better. So currently, I am sitting at 90% LE penetration, which is wild. You think about this, you think about Inquisitor. Inquisitor, if you don't crit, gets 10% LE pen. Obviously, my Inquisitor is like destroying maps on the EK Nova build with like 70-ish, 80% crit while mapping. And then on single target with the Assassin's markup, it is 100% crit. Now, to get 100% LE pen on Inquisitor, you need 100% crit chance. You need to crit all the time. Not so with this amulet. It doesn't matter if I crit. I basically get one of the strongest parts of Inquisitor for free, effectively, when it comes to like scaling and stuff like that. Obviously, stat stacking and all that stuff, but this is crazy. And obviously, you can go past 100%. Friendly reminder that you know, elemental resist can go into the negatives in PoE. But yeah, it's wild. This is the amount of damage you can get from this is insane. And I'm just gonna say this is probably gonna be a long video. There's a lot to go over. I will try to be as concise as I can, and I'm sorry if I don't make sense on a lot of this stuff. But basically, right now I'm at 90% LE pen, and funnily enough, I haven't taken Forces of Nature yet, which I probably will do at some point, just because it's you know, it's free damage, and I get 10% pen from this. So if I just had 3 passive points in this, I would be 100% LE pen, just straight up, which is, again, very crazy. So the build, you'll notice first off, again, before I go straight into the passives and the gear and stuff like that, you'll notice that I have relatively low life. I'm level 83. I have 4,051 life, 480 ES, again, Gravicious Craft. but I am running Ghost Dance, so I have Ghost Shrouds. And like I said before, the build should have so much damage. As you can see, this character is only a few hours old, and let me stop my stream timer. I just stopped streaming. The character is only a few hours old, and that T7 map boss died like instantly. And you have to take into account that I have 4 siege ballistas that I have to put down and tornado. And I don't even think I threw out the tornado, and I think I only put 3 siege ballistas down. I might have had 4. I can't really tell. And really, I didn't even need to do any of that. The tornado shot itself would just instantly kill stuff. Like, that stuff is, like, the damage potential of this build is insane, right? But like I said, it should have so much damage that I can focus purely on defenses and be fine. So, like, while theoretically I could run Wrath Aura for this and get a lot more damage, I don't think I really need to. I think I'll be okay, and I'll go over, like, all the damage and everything in a minute. So, I am running Grace, Determination, Defiance Banner, and Herald of Ice and Precision, okay? So, with all of that, you'll see, like, standard unbuffed, nothing up. I have 7,400 armor and 12.8k evasion. If I pop my Flasks, you'll see that I'm just over 18k armor and 21.3k evasion. Again, intro maps, not like super stellar gear or anything. Like, my helmet is ass. And still have a bunch of stuff to take on the tree. So while my raw life isn't super high, I do have Ghost Shrouds, and I do have 18k armor, 21.3k evasion, you know, Vol Grace, Vol Molten Shell, Defiance Banner, and very close to cap spell suppression, which is what I'm working on right now, getting Inveterate. And once I grab that, I will be spell suppress capped as well. So the character is deceivingly tanky. So don't let the health values fool you rather. So now let's get into the passive tree. So basically, standard tree here. You start pathing up here. This is like just the most efficient pathing on Ranger, in my opinion. Like, you can grab 2 life nodes here, but the these nodes here are kind of like wasted. It's like 8% attack damage and global accuracy is whatever, 4% attack speeds, whatever. Like, none of these. If these gave life as well, I would probably go this way instead, but they don't. So it's like whatever. And I get main stat from going this way, so it's a win-win. So path up left, right, and then go down, grabbing ballistics. I grabbed aspect of the eagle super on while leveling, primal spirits, 20% strength and int, which leads me to my first caveat with the amulet, Crystallised Omniscience. So even though it says it counts modifiers to attributes and all sorts of stuff like that, a great example is it's on an Onyx amulet. It says plus 11 to all attributes. That's not how it works. What you're thinking is that gives me 33 omniscience. It does not. It gives me 11 omniscience. Same as this node, 20 strength and 20 intelligence. This gives me 20 omniscience. You cannot double up on stats. So if my belt has 30 strength on it, if this was rolled to have 30 strength and 30 int, or 25 int and 25 dex or whatever, the actual attributes don't matter. It all gets converted to the same stat. So it doesn't matter if it's strength, int, or dex. You get no benefits from any of those stats. It's all omniscience. So if this was 25 and 25, it would not be counting towards 50. It would only count towards 25. So before anybody's like, hey, put some hybrid crafts on, doesn't work. Okay. So grabbing primal spirit. Very nice. I actually am taking this right now, not because of the attributes, but because of the 20% increased max mana. I'll go over that later when I go over the gym setup. So pathing down, Heart of Oak, Finesse, very good. Going through Quick Step. I will, at some point, grab one with Nature. It's just, you know, LE damage and crit chance, which is really good. I just am going for spell suppression before I start really scaling crit, which is why you'll notice in the map, my Herald of Ice explosions were very inconsistent. And even with my crit chance is ass. It is unbuffed, and I don't have power charge generation or anything right now. Unbuffed, my crit chance is 19.8%. With the Crystal Flask up, it's 25%, so it's pretty bad. Okay. The only crit I really have is just the top wheel here. That's it. That's the only crit I have. I don't even think this gives crit. Yeah, this gives no crit. So that's literally the only crit that I have on the entire tree. So not a lot. I've not yet scaled crit. I do in my final POB. I have one with Nature taken. I have Heart Seeker. I have, I will probably end up taking the Spell Suppression Mastery that gives me increased crit strike based on my Spell Suppress, because that would be another 100% increased. So stuff like that to get my crit chance up. But I'll go over later how I can make that more consistent, even with low crit chance. Anyway, firstly, pathing through here, grabbing...
now.
Thanks, random person, for the Twitch follow. Grabbing Herbalism and Life Mastery, plus 50 max life. So first, I actually pathed down while leveling, and I went and grabbed Point Blank. Omniscience is a level 61 amulet, by the way, so like none of these nodes or any of the stat nodes I didn't take while leveling. I actually leveled in Blood Aqueducts to like 65 and then swapped, and it was fine. So I grabbed Point Blank, grabbed the life nodes here, and then from here started going up, right? So in the final tree, definitely going to pick up Lethality. This will probably be what I go for first, directly after finishing Inveterate. I've also picked up Farsight just to help with accuracy. I think in my final setup, I may go for Hits Can't Be Evaded on my bow, like multi-mod it and go for Hits Can't Be Evaded, so I don't really have to mess around with accuracy, because if I don't have to mess around with accuracy, that'll save me a lot of passive points in the build and a lot of heartache. Other than that, grabbing Utmost Swiftness and stuff, like I said, the Mastery for plus 5 dex per allocated Mastery. I still have a lot of Masteries to get, so I'm going to definitely get my money's worth from that node. While leveling, I did actually take the bottom side of Master Fletcher. Obviously didn't go crit until way later on, like way later on. Bow Mastery, right now I'm using increases and reductions to projectile speed, also applied to damage with bows, and 100% accuracy rating per green socket on equipped bow. So right now, my projectile speed is actually super high. Where is it? Projectile speed modifier is 65%. While I'm mapping, this actually goes up to about 80%. And then I was thinking, like, grabbing Longshot would have crazy synergy with this as well, because you get an additional 40% projectile speed, while also getting 60% increased damage with hits to targets that are further away, which obviously Tornado Shot, Pierce, and Chain, like you were hitting things off screen all the time. This would be really nice, and it also lets me grab another Projectile Mastery with 15% more projectile speed, which is probably going to be the best thing out of all this, I think, because that's going to be so much proj speed that I get a ton of damage from that. But we'll see if I end up eventually taking it. It all depends on how many points I can realistically get with the build, right? So from there, grabbing Inveterate right now, I will be taking the Spell Suppression Mastery very likely for crit chance, because at least it's 100% crit chance for one passive point, which right now I definitely need. So going up further, while leveling, I did beeline left here and grab Revenge of the Hunted. I'm using the Evasion Mastery for Grace Mana Reservation, as you do. I'm currently spec'd into Prowess, simply because I need a little bit more Omniscience to equip this bow. And then I pathed up, got Clever Thief for the Leech, so I could drop my Thief's Torment leveling unique ring, and grabbed Blood Drinker. I did not grab Depth Perception until I swapped to Omniscience and needed to cap my hit chance. Also, I did not path all the way up here and grab these nodes, like any of this, until like way later on, but Ghost Dance, really good. It's a staple defensive layer at this point. It basically gives you a bunch of ES, up to 3% of your evasion rating, and obviously I have 480 ES right now and like 20 whatever K evasion and maps, so yeah, I'm getting like full ES anytime something manages to hit me through my defensive layers. Written in Blood is, it's life and ES, and then Influence, a bunch of aura effect, also from the Mastery, as well as, a little bit of mana reservation efficiency as well. Now over here, you go straight up, you grab Charisma. It's a more mana reservation, lets you fit in all the auras. I will go over Lethal Pride in a second, pathing straight up, getting Coordination, Blood Siphon, blah, 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 Trickery, very basic stuff, right? So, why am I using Lethal Pride in the build? Well, we don't care about what it's rolled, really, but all these small nodes now give 4 strength, 2 strength, 2 strength, 2 strength, some leech, I guess, 4 strength, 2 strength, 4 strength, 4 strength, max 1 fortification, 2 strength, 2 strength, 2 strength, 2 strength, 4 strength, and this is the fat one, 5% increased strength. So basically just tons and tons and tons of strength for 1 jewel socket. Really, really good. You may not need to run this end game, but definitely early on, this was a game changer in terms of being able to run Omniscience right at level 65. Yeah, this is huge. I think this is definitely worth going for in the build. If you didn't need to use a Lethal Pride, you would still want to use a Timeless Jewel, probably a Glorious Vanity to either get Overleach or Corrupted Soul. Yeah, either or. Both would probably be good for the build. Overleach sounds insane for the build, but yeah. Anyway, that's the passive tree. Again, very subject to change. I'm going to do a lot, like this is definitely not the final version of it. There are a lot of stuff is going to change. If I can get out of these accuracy nodes, I would love to save those points, as well as saving the point on prowess, as well as saving points on primal spirit as well. But I do just need a few like raw levels to get a little bit more mana pool, and then I can take points out of that. Anyway, that's the passive tree. Let's get into the gear. So the gear is pretty whatever. I guess I'll start with my gauntlets first. I have Pierce rolled on the implicit and Intimidate enemies on hit, which is nice. However, this is what I was talking about when I said consistent Herald of Ice procs, even with low crit. Tomorrow on the EK Nova guy, I'm going to farm a bunch of Exarch influence because I ran out of them rolling these gloves and, you know, other pieces of gear. It's why other pieces don't have influence like my chest piece. But I'm going to roll it until I get Freeze Prolif. The Freeze Proliferation in 12 yards is insanely good. Like, there's a lot of stuff you can run with this build. Like, Rage on hit would be crazy with this build. Having Rage generation on this build would be absolutely bonkers. You get a bunch of damage, you get a bunch of attack speed, you get move speed, you are zooming. You could even fit in Berserk if you really wanted to. So you absolutely destroy map bosses in 1 frame, considering I killed them now in like half a second. But yeah, Rage generation, if you want to go that route, you can. However, especially with my low crit right now, Freeze Prolif is so good. Oh my god, getting that node on Inquisitor changed my life. I am part of the Church of Freeze Prolif on gloves now. That is one of my favorite new implicits. I absolutely love it. So that's going to be like my top priority tomorrow when I start stream. But yeah, you'll notice with a lot of my gear, I go for life, I go for chaos res if I can get it, and main stat. When I say main stat, I just mean dex, int, or strength. It doesn't matter what, but something. The belt, tier 1 life, some chaos res again, and main stat crafted on. Boots, so these are okay. They're tier 2 life, a bunch of flat regen, chaos res, onslaught crafted on. That's how I'm getting my onslaught for the build. These are pretty nice boots. Gonna stick with them for a while, likely. In the helmet slot, basically kind of dead mods there. The reduced life regeneration is actually a pretty slept on node. I think it's actually pretty good, but it's not what I want to go for ultimately. It's just, yeah, ran out of influences. Rip. What can you do? So this is going to be my weakest slot by far. The reason I'm using it, as you can probably tell, is it's got some main stat. And again, I hit this with a Loathing Essence. So 7% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills. That's why I'm running it. From the Omniscient Amulet, you can see I do not need res. I do not need any res at all. I don't care about res on this gear. So I know it looks really ugly, but for right now, it's serving its purpose. It's good enough. We'll replace it tomorrow for sure. Going down on the rings, again, they don't look super fancy or anything, but you're noticing a trend here. Life, main stat, chaos res, right? Looking in the other ring, we actually have a pretty low life roll. However, it had main stat on it and accuracy, which is something I really needed. And I put an Elrion craft on this one. Had an open prefix. Moving on to the chest piece. This is a random 6-link I got from a ritual on my Inquisitor. I had it laying around in the stash, so I threw it on this character. Definitely not the endgame base that I want. It's good enough for now. I just hit this with greeds until I got a decent enough roll. I would have really, really liked to hit main stat on this, but I was getting really low on greed essences. I threw like 30 of them on, and I was starting to get really low on the high tier ones. So I hit this spell suppression with a good life regen roll and just took it because, you know, Your typical like Deadeye build that is also running like Ghost Shrouds and stuff, degen is going to be your biggest enemy. So the life regen is actually quite good, with the open prefix for the Gravicious craft to get our ES. Now the bow, actually I'm going to do the quiver first. Quiver is just, you know, life, res, no main stat on this. I did have main stat on it, but I put on chance to gain frenzy charge on crit strike, which actually reminds me I didn't go over the mark nodes here. So 20% increased damage with hits against marked enemy, increased effective mark, and marked for death gives Culling Strike to us, which is really nice. However, the mastery gives you 10% chance to gain a frenzy charge whenever you hit your marked enemy. I'm not quite fast enough to really sustain 3 frenzy charges through most of the map for this, so just to get as much frenzy charge uptime as I can for now, I took this on the quiver. However, I will very likely be dropping this by tomorrow, just as soon as, you know, I'm, you know, more consistently keeping up my frenzy charges from the mark mastery alone. Anywho, onto the bow. So I basically threw on Shrieking is the second tier, right? The very one before Deafening. Shrieking, Lightning Essences, Wrath, I believe they're called, Wrath Essences, and I managed to hit tier 1 fire. I cheated. I went and did a T16 map for a high level Imperial bow. But I hit tier 1 fire damage. The suffixes were full, so I didn't put on attack speed. I just crafted on the highest flat cold I could. So we have tier 2 lightning, tier 1 fire, and crafted on cold with some whatever suffixes. But I put the attack speed per 8% quality on there. This is a pretty fucking good bow. I'm going to be honest. This is a pretty fucking good bow for what it is. So now with all the gear out of the way, before I go into the gym links, I'm going to explain a little bit about the mechanics of the build. So why Tornado Shot, right? Well, Tornado Shot scales really, really hard with added projectiles. So we're using GMP.
My mana is gone.
All right, so where is it? So we're using GMP, right? So Tornado Shot, basically you shoot one arrow out, it explodes in a tornado, and it shoots out a bunch of smaller arrows, right? So the way it works is basically, let me actually mouse over this so I don't misinform you guys. Yeah, so it fires 3 secondary projectiles. So basically it scales really, really, really hard with additional sources of projectiles. So for our Ascendancies, I'm blind. There it is. For Ascendancies, I went Ricochet first lab, and then I took Tailwind, and then I went Endless Munitions and Merc lab, and then I went Focal Point in Uber lab. So we take Chain, which is really nice. Tailwind speaks for itself. It's a bunch of attack speed, it's move speed, it's cast speed, it's blah, 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 blah. It's literally everything. And then +2 Proj, and then obviously the Focal Point, increased effective marks. This is a bunch of single target damage, making the mark transfer to another mob when the other, you know, your marked target dies is a bunch of clear speed, and 25% less damage taken from enemies near your marked enemy is a bunch of survivability while mapping. Anyway, the important part here is +2 Proj. So baseline, we now have 3 tornadoes, and each one of these tornadoes is shooting out, you know, projectiles as well. Then we put on GMP, right, which gives you 4 additional projectiles. And now we have 4 + 2 is 6, plus the first base one, that's 7 projectiles. That's a shit ton of projectiles. So we're running +1 Pierce with Chain. So all of my, because of order of operations, all of these will pierce one mob and then Chain. That seems to be more than enough right now. Along with Herald of Ice, I just destroy density. As soon as I get consistent Herald of Ice explosions, I don't think any amount of density really, even like once you get into the T14 craziness, can really stand up to it. It's absolutely insane. That's why I'm not using Chain support. Anyway, the way it works is we're scaling a shit ton of projectiles, which basically means shotgunning. And you'll notice that Tornado Shot doesn't really have any innate damage. Stuff like Ice Shot and Lightning Arrow and things like that have a bunch of innate damage and Fizz to LE conversion baked in. Tornado Shot doesn't have any of that. You basically just get extra projectiles. That's all it is. You'll even notice at the very top there, the effectiveness of added damage is even quite low at that. All you get is a bunch of projectiles. We get the ability to shotgun. So what do we do to remedy that? Well, we pair it with something like this bow, where we just get tons and tons and tons of flat added elemental damage. This is something I've talked about a lot of a build I wanted to do, right? Now, there's a lot of problems in modern day PoE of scaling tons of flat elemental damage. You're getting a bunch of different elements and stuff like that, and typically in PoE, you always want to double down on one element because you have to worry about resistances, you need to worry about getting exposure for that element, etc., etc. However, this amulet takes care of everything, because even a very early game character, I have 90% Ellie pen, and if I decided to just pull some points out somewhere else and put them here, I could have at level 83 100% Ellie pen on a Ellie stacking build, which is absolutely crazy. Okay, it is absolutely insane. It takes away all the major weak points of this build. And could it potentially be better played as other things? Maybe. I wanted to play it as Tornado Shot. Something you could also do that I was thinking about is doing the exact same concept basically, but doing it on a Wander instead. Doing this as something like Power Siphon or Kinetic Blast sounds really, really fun, and I may play around with it later on in the league. Maybe that's what I'll play in my Merry Fizmus private league that I'll do towards the end of the league. If I really end up loving this build, I'll do it as a Wander or something instead, just to be different, you know. But yeah, the sky's the limit with this amulet. You can do a lot of stuff, and that's kind of like the whole idea of the build. I'll also want to grab like jewel sockets and stuff and roll some like a really good Stygian vise and throw in a cracked abyss jewel with, like, you know, life and preferably phasing and some flat Ellie damage on there as well. Very likely that tomorrow I will grab the abyss jewel nodes and maybe start farming some abyss on the character and try to get some like crazy crackhead damage jewels, because that is one of the best ways to scale flat Ellie stacking bow builds, to my knowledge. Anyway, so that's kind of like the idea and the mechanics of the build. And then for single target, we're using Siege Ballista. So to be honest, I've heard Siege Ballista can shotgun with multi-proj. I don't actually know if that's true. I'm using them with Focus Ballista support, which is why they fire when I do. But all I know is that they deal a shit ton of damage to the point where I have felt no need to test out another single target option. It's absolutely insane the damage they deal. So I think I'm sticking with this for the long run. Other than that, other mechanics, it's basically just Tornado Shot. We're running Mark on hit, and I'm using Tornado. Now, I think very confidently, actually, by tomorrow, I'm going to be using a cast on focus setup that I originally was using on the EK Inquisitor as well, just because throwing up 4 ballistas and then manually casting Tornado and then firing it, especially when I don't have increased duration on it, is really, really like finicky. And like, honestly, the amount of time it takes me to throw up 4 totems, cast the Tornado, and start shooting, I just would already instantly kill the map boss. There's no real point for it. It makes a lot more sense to throw up the ballistas, hit the focus while I'm already firing, and it's a lot smoother to play, and it'll probably feel a lot better in bosses as well. So with that out of the way, let's get into the links. So I won't make you guys wait like I usually do. I'll go through the main links first. So we have Tornado Shot linked with Trinity support, Inspiration support, Mirage Archer support, Elemental Damage with attack support, and GMP. Most of this, I think, is how it's going to stay. Mana is definitely an issue for the build, so I think I'm going to be sticking with Inspiration. I actually am not sure how Mirage Archer really factors in for single target. This is something that's really weird with PoB, and like I said, I have limited knowledge and experience with bow builds. But Mirage Archer is like super whack when it comes to calculating PoB damage. It's really hard for me to tell if it's like how much of a damage gain and or loss it is for single target running this over something else. But if it ends up being a damage loss for single target, I may replace it with something else just for bossing, or I may just keep it, since even if it is technically a damage loss, it allows me to have damage while I'm, you know, not actively attacking the boss and you know, dealing with mechanics and stuff. So Trinity support, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to explain this right now. There's a command in my Twitch chat already. Basically, all you need to worry about, people get confused by the giant wall of text. Basically, it gives you tons of damage, and all you really need to worry about is you want to have two elements that are alternating the highest hit for you. So basically, if I mouse over this tornado shot, you'll see I deal 390 up to 391 fizz damage, which is not the important part. I deal between 1,110. I'll restart. I deal between 1,011 to 1,755 fire damage, between 150 to 2,485 lightning damage, and between 483 to 797 cold damage. So basically, all that's important about this is that my lightning damage, and this is how it's going to work with basically every resonance build ever, is you want your lightning damage to be your highest roll pretty much always. And the reason why is because lightning damage, as you can see, is the most volatile. It's got the widest damage range for its damage. So basically, every time I'm attacking, blah, 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 right? Every time I'm attacking, the majority of the time, lightning is probably going to be my highest damage. But every other attack, every few attacks, whatever it is, that lightning damage is going to roll low enough so that my fire damage, or maybe even my cold damage, ends up dealing more damage. So if I low roll and I do like 300 lightning damage, 500 cold damage, and 1,200 fire damage, both the cold and the fire will have dealt more damage than the lightning, and thus I will gain resonance. So you gain resonance for the two elements that you did not hit the highest of. So if I hit the highest of fire, I will gain lightning and cold. If I hit the highest of cold, I will gain fire and lightning. And if I hit the highest of lightning, I will gain fire and cold. I may have repeated myself, but you guys get the point. It's literally just you gain the two that you didn't hit, right? So all that really matters is, like, most of the time I'm hitting highest lightning, which means I'm gaining fire and cold. And then every other attack, every 3 attacks, whatever it is, the lightning low rolls, and I'm hitting with probably fire, since I have a tier 1 fire roll on my bow. And then that hitting the highest fire damage gives me lightning and cold. The cold part doesn't matter because I already have that, but it does give me the lightning, which gives me triple resonance, which is 3% more per 5 of the lowest resonance. We have 50 resonance, which means we get 30% more elemental damage. And you get additional pen from Trinity, which is worth noting. So, if you factor in the pen I have right now from resonance, which I have, we are sitting at 105% LE pen, which is crazy. And again, like I said, you can spend 3 points, grab this, and then you're at 115 pen at level 83 when I still have a bunch of other stuff to take. It's wild. It really is. It's crazy. And way more gear to craft, like way better gear with a bunch more main stat and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, that's the Trinity explanation. Moving on from there, yeah, just everything else is pretty cut and dry. It is what it is. Some of these may change, some of them might not. This is likely, tentatively, my endgame gym setup. Moving on to the boots, I'm running Inspiration with Sniper's Mark, Mark on Hit, and Tornado Shot. Tornado Shot with Tornado. This is subject to change. I just kind of wanted to try Tornado to see if... Sorry, I wanted to try Inspiration over Life Tap to see how it felt over just going Life Tap. Right now, I'm still on the fence. I may end up going for Life Tap instead. My Sniper's Mark cost me 44 mana. You'll notice right now that I have 91 mana. My Tornado Shot costs 23, my Siege Ballistas are 12, and my Flame Dash is 16. So, it's pretty tight, as you can tell. And without Inspiration, it costs 56. So, again, very tight. So, I may end up going with Life Tap on the Curse on Hit, or the Mark on Hit, rather. Still undecided, but it's what I'm running for now. I just wanted to try testing it out. And like I said, the Tornado is probably going to go in the helmet. This is another build, funnily enough. This is another build that's very, very socket intensive. There's a lot of stuff I would like to do, but probably won't be able to, simply because of socket pressure. So moving on from there, in the gloves, I have Herald of Ice, Molten Shell with Gas and Damage Taken setup, and Defiance Banner. And in the helmet, I'm running Precision, Grace, Termination, Flame Dash. So as you can tell, just 90% of my sockets are filled with like auras and my cast when damage taken setup. Simply because you have a double damage setup with a bow build, right? You have your 6 link from your chest piece that goes towards your main damage ability, or you know, vice versa. And then you have your single target set up with your ballistas that takes your other 6 link. So you don't have very many links to work with this setup in terms of like what you can do, since you're running a 2 damage setup. So in the ballista, I currently have siege ballista, linked focus ballista, inspiration, elemental damage, and cold damage. Cold damage simply because you can't use Trinity on ballistas, so I couldn't think of anything else really to throw in at the time. This is subject to change. I don't know what I'm going to end up running on it, but that's just what I'm using for now. In the last place over here, I dropped a 6% quality mark on his, so I was just leveling it there. That's all it really is. But yeah, that's all the links and everything else. I think that's everything, you guys. I think that's it. It's only been 41 minutes. I was expecting this to hit an hour, to be honest. I hope I did a good job explaining everything. I'll go over my flask real quick, but it's the typical cut and dry stuff. Instant recovery with CB immune. A granite flask with increased effect and increased armor. So I gained a ton of armor from that. Running a jade flask with increased evasion during flask effect. I'm running a quicksilver flask with reduced curse effect. And I'm running diamond flask with just move speed and charges gain when hit. Yeah, nothing too crazy. But yeah, I think that's everything. This build has been an absolute blast to play. I'm having a ton of fun. The EK Inquisitor is not dead. He is not completely like sidelined. I'm not super done with him. It's just I just could not get this build idea out of my head, and I just stayed up all night theory crafting it, and I think it's very fun, and I think it has a ton of potential. But yeah, the biggest reason, by the way, is people keep asking me if I was going to take the EK to 100, and I couldn't stop thinking about this build, and I really wanted to test it because this is another build that would be a very strong contender for me playing to 100, and I don't really want to just do 100 EK Nova and then 100 on this build back to back, because 100 is honestly quite bad for me in terms of like YouTube content and stuff, because the build's going to be done, you know, before I hit 100. Realistically, the upgrades get like more and more marginal as you go. If you watch the diary series, for the most part, there are some big things you can get later on, but for the most part, the upgrades get pretty small after a point. It's like getting some more life here and, you know, a little bit more damage there, and it you know, it kind of gets whatever, and I don't think it's super interesting for people. So going for 100 isn't super good for me in terms of like content and stuff like that. So yeah, I think just maybe like 100, if that, this league, and I really wanted to choose between the two, and if this worked out, I might end up going for this instead over the EK Nova. I don't know. We'll see. Either way, I'm going to be playing both of them in tandem, doing different things on each for now. The EK Nova is really good for farming certain stuff. Still needed to farm more bosses on him tomorrow, but I'm excited to try doing content with this character and also doing more bosses and stuff on the EK Nova guy as well. But yeah, I think I'm going to end the video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for your support. We are very rapidly kind of slowing down with people, you know, jumping over to Lost Ark and soon Elden Ring, I'm sure. But very rapidly, relatively approaching 1,000 subs. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it very much. If you enjoyed the content, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave me a thumbs up. If you didn't, feel free to leave me a thumbs down. Tell me what you think I can do better down in the comments. I do read all the comments. Even if I don't respond, I promise you I read all the comments. And if I don't respond, most of the time it's just because I see it and then I forget because I'm doing something else. Other than that, maybe consider subbing if you've been on the fence and you do like the content that I'm putting out. It is very consistent content. I put stuff out all the time. I have been for the past few months. And other than that, I think that's everything. Just let me know down below, you guys, if you have questions about the build, whatever. I will link the current character's POB down below. Just do know that it's a test character. Everything's a work in progress. Things are subject to change. They will change very constantly, but if you want to play along, feel free. Do note, however, that because it is very, you have to balance your attributes a lot while playing the build. This is not a one-size-fits-all tree. It is very specific to me and the current gear requirements that I have, so it may not be the same for you. Anyway, with that last caveat out of the way, I think I'm going to end the video here. Thanks a bunch, you guys, for watching. I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.